Hello, so this video is to show you how to knit a folded cuff together. There are various methods that I have seen how to join the folded cuff together. Methods include sewing, provisional cast on. I found those methods didn't work for me personally. I found that the sewing method wasn't very flexible, so it wasn't very suitable for socks. The provisional cast on the other hand was too loose, and there was just not enough grip there to hold the cuff together on my leg how it should be. And I found that the method that works the best for me was to knit it together. So these are examples of socks that have folded cuff with a cuff that was knitted together. This particular cuff is on my hiking boot socks pattern, and in this case I worked knitted fabric on the inside, equal number of runs on the inside to equal number runs on the outside. So on the inside I worked a stockinette stitch, and on the outside I worked twisted rib, which is pair one and knit one through the back loop. Then I joined it together with purl two together, which gives this purl rich, which can be work as a decorative feature. And I really like that. The only thing with that cuff I found was that the fit was a little bit relaxed. It wasn't as bad as it could have been sometimes if you just had the knitted fabric on both sides, which I think is extremely loose. So this was a little bit better with twisted rib on the outside, but still there was just not as snug as I like my cuffs to be. So then on the second sample, I tried to do a knit one, pair one on both sides. Oh, actually, this is the wrong example. One moment. This one has, I tried different methods. So this one was just plain knit on the inside and one by one rib on the outside, and it was significantly better than this scarf. You can tell how much larger this one is. So I was pleased with that, but I still wasn't sure about this kind of packaging inside. And although when I put that on my leg, you can't really see that at all, and it stretches. And this hasn't been blocked yet, so possibly that might even look better after blocking. So on another sock, I tried one by one rib. So this, in my opinion, produced the best result for me. The cuff is nice and firm, just like it should be. All those socks are hiking boot socks, which, I wanted a cuff that will stay up above my hiking boots and won't slide down. And also, with the double folded texture, it will provide me with a little bit of more protection when I'm walking in the woods or in the forest, or rocks sometimes can spray back. So I wanted something that will be quite nice and snug on my leg. So on this sample I did one by one rib on one side and one by one rib on the inside. And the pattern, the hiking boot pattern, will tell you how many rounds you do on one side. I'd like to do a purl hem at the top, and how many rounds on the inside. Essentially you want the same number of rounds on the outside as on the inside. And here I joined it with knit two together method. So I joined one stitch from the cast on edge with my live stitch on the needle with knit two together, and this is what it looks like. Okay, you can see there, and on the inside. So that's knit two together. This was purl two together, so you can kind of compare. Okay, this is nice on this side. I still quite like this effect, and I might use that again. But this is what they are like, the folded cuffs for hiking boot socks. So, as I say, the pattern will give you all the numbers that you need to know. Now let's get on with working on a brand new folded cuff, which I have started here. And here I did something yet a little bit more different again. So on one side, on the inside of the leg, there will be 1 by 1 rib, which in my opinion is not very, it doesn't ever look very pretty or very neat, that 1 by 1 rib. So on the outside, so the side that will show from, that will be on the outside of the sock, I did 1 by 1 twisted rib. And I separated the two with a pearl ridge here at the top, which acts like a hem, but also it makes it easy to find where that cuff actually is supposed to fold. So with a 1 by 1 rib, whether it's a twisted rib or any other rib, when I know that I will be working a folded cuff, the very first round, I find that if I knit it plain without rib, without purling, it just makes it a little bit easier then to find those stitches when you join them together. So the pattern again will show you this, but on the very first round, before you start doing 1 by 1 rib, you just need 1 round plain stockinette. Before you start, on the very first stitch, it's a good idea to insert a stitch marker on your first stitch for you then to know when you fold it and when you are getting ready to join it together, which is the first stitch, the very first stitch, so that it is nice and straight. This is quite important to make sure that your cuff won't be twisted in any way. So to find that very first stitch is quite important, and I find if you put a safety pin, that also helps you with counting how many rounds you have worked. So on this particular cuff, I did 12 rounds on each side, except that I did the very first round, I knitted plain, so then I worked 11 1 by 1 rib, purl 1 round, and then twisted rib on the outside. And the numbers have to match, so that is completely identical in size. So now I'm going to start folding it inside to make ready to start joining it together. I have my tools ready here as well. So I have a sharp, very sharp higher needle. I don't like using it for knitting with, but sometimes when you have to find those tiny stitches, it's so much easier to pick it up. So we'll see how we go, whether we're actually going to need it, but I have it just in case. Also, occasionally you might need a tiny little crochet hook. Again, if you find that it's very tricky to find that stitch, you might find it helpful to use a crochet hook to lift it. So, right, so let's start. So basically, let's start from the very beginning so I can show you how I do it. So this is where you are up to. You finished your rounds and you are ready to fold the cuff and join it together. So you fold the first part inside, like that. And you kind of mold it with your hands to make sure it's nice and straight and ready. And now I'm going to start getting everything ready to start knitting it together. So I need continental, so I hold my yarn in the left hand. And I'm going to now find that safety pin. And I find it's here. But the safety pin, don't forget, is put around the leg of a stitch, right? So we need to actually remove it, but the very first stitch, the stitches that you want to be picking up are those little stitches. And I'm going to try and point it to the camera so you can see. Those are the stitches that you will be lifting onto the working needle and knitting it together. So the safety pin is placed on the leg because that was the very first stitch that I marked. So we're not going to put the needle in that stitch. We're going to put the needle into the very stitch next to it. Can you see? Right there. There you go. At this point, you can remove that safety pin. I'm going to leave it just in case I get something wrong. Sometimes, you know, you can split the yarn or something. So I don't want to lose that place. I can leave it for as long as I like it. It doesn't bother me. So here I'm kind of like getting ready. Okay. I'm going to try to put the sharp needle down and see if I can do it with my ordinary Addi needle for the time being. So I have just lifted the stitch, the very first stitch from cast on edge on my working needle, so on the left needle, and it's here, can you see? And this is the very first stitch from my life stitch. So now I'm going to do knit two together, okay? Right, I'm trying to slow down to make sure that you can see. So I have just pulled it through, knit two together, and I'm gonna slip it off, okay? So that was our very first stitch, we've just done that. Now, the most important thing is that you actually don't skip any stitches. Because if you end up skipping too many stitches, the cuff, when it comes to the end, will have too much packer and it just won't look right. And you're going to have to go back and redo it. And that's not very nice. So we're going to try really, really hard to take our time and carefully, in a good light, try to find each stitch, each stitch, with a live stitch with a cast on edge and stitch and knit it together. So how I'm going to look is I'm going to sometimes I can just look like that and I can see, in this case I can see so clearly, I hope you can as well, that my very next stitch from cast on edge is this one. I don't actually need to even twist it. So I can just put it on the working needle. I'm moving this behind because it went forward. Okay, and sometimes I just need to do like that to help myself. But of course the knit two together goes like that. Okay. Oh, I've picked up a thread. Yeah. One more thread there. Sometimes it can go like that. So you have to be very patient with this. I think it really is worth it, that curve, that little bit of extra time. Okay, now I've done that. So that was the second stitch. And one by one, I'm going to pick up a stitch from cast on edge. I'm just making sure I'm in the right place for the camera to pick it up. So I'm going to pick up the next stitch here. Can you see? Can everybody see? Yeah, can you see that this stitch was just worked? So the very next stitch from the cast on edge is this one. And I'm going to move it forward. Here, move forward as in the work, not the stitch forward. Then the yarn has to be at the back. I'm just gonna help it through because it can be a little bit tight and knit it together. So you knit each stitch, each cast on stitch with each live stitch, one by one, not missing any. So let's, for example, you have a really dark color yarn or your cast on was very tight. But with the knitted cast on, just plain stockinette, the very first, sorry, not the knitted cast on, the very first run being knitted in plain stockinette, I think that makes it much easier than to find those stitches, because I find that the pearl stitch creates a bump and I think it just twists it a little bit and then it gets confusing as to which stitch is next. And sometimes I find that it can get a little bit messy then. So let's imagine that I can't find, and I'm going to use my crochet hook to see if I can help. So I'm looking here behind, okay, I'm gonna pull this yarn to see which exactly stitch I have just joined, and I can see this one because it's pulling, okay. So I'm going to stick my crochet hook in the next cast on stitch that I need to be joining, okay, and I'm going to just insert, then transfer from the crochet hook onto the needle, pull out the crochet hook, put the yarn, working yarn to the back. I'm just gonna join it together, help myself a little bit then to join it. And here we go. You see? That can also be helpful to use a crochet hook. Or we can also use a higher sharp needle as well. But here, because I have knitted the first run in plain stockinette, I can clearly see how I go about it. So I'm gonna do one more without, because I don't need any help. Okay, here it is. Working yarn behind, out of the way, and I'm going to join this together. And one more for good luck. And then I will tell you what you can do if you end up missing some stitches. So if you come to the other side and you kind of look and you think, oh, this looks like I'm going to have too much slack here. So something obviously was wrong and I've skipped some stitches. What you can do is work 2 stitches together. So it's quite important when you come halfway to kind of gauge how you're getting on. Trust me, with the darker yarn, for example, when I was working with this color, I had to do it twice on one occasion because it was, I skipped too many and it was looking very messy and I had too much slack. So, but every now and again, I do happen to have 1 or 2 that I want to kind of like squeeze in there somewhere. And that is okay. You can do that. So basically, what you can do when that happens is to work 2 stitches into 1 stitch. So, for example, let's say, for example, you have more stitches here than available on a cast on edge because you have skipped some. So now I'm going to show you. I'm going to work this live stitch again into the same stitch. So not the actual stitch, but the custom stitch, like that. Okay, and then I can just join it. I don't want to stretch it and ruin my work, but basically you just insert the needle into the same custom stitch just to move it a little bit forward. And you can get away with doing that 2 or 3 times even. So that's it really. I don't know what else I can tell you apart from that is how you knit together a folded cuff. Okay, the pattern for the hiking boot socks, if you're interested, will be attached in the link below. Thank you for watching. I hope you find this video helpful. Bye bye.